Hello everyone. In this video, I'm just going to talk about our battles. Many battles are there in a Christian life. That's why to be a Christian in this physical world is tough. We can face a lot of physical and spiritual battles. But on the other hand, God is there with us to give victory. In our day to day life, each and every day we face lot of challenges, lot of struggles, lot of oppositions. But we must also understand that we can definitely win them if we fight in the spiritual realm. In other words, if you want to win in this physical world, you must fight spiritually. Apostle Paul is clearly stating that in Ephesians 6:12, he is telling us that we have battles in our lives, that is for sure, but they are spiritual. And he is also urging us to take up the armor of God to win in these battles. When we say battles, it's not just fighting one another. It may be any kind of struggle. It may be a person or a group of people in your life trying to grab your opportunities, or a people or person who wants to see you to suffer, or it can be a period of crisis, or it can be a period in which you are suffering from some kind of illness. That is also a kind of battle. If you are a minister of God, if people oppose your ministry, that is also a kind of battle. But whatever it is, we must understand few things. We must strongly rely on this statement. Only God can give you victory, and your physical ability to solve your problems or solve your crisis are not going to help. Without God, we are easy pickings for the enemies. I can cite many examples from the scripture. We are seeing the people of Israel fought against the Philistines before the days of Saul. In the initial part of the battle, they were defeated by the Philistines. So the next day, they thought that we could bring the Ark of the Covenant to our camp, and definitely we can easily defeat the Philistines. So they brought the Ark of the Covenant to the battlefield, but it couldn't change the course of that battle simply because God was not with them. Though they had the Ark of the Covenant, it doesn't mean that God was with them. Similarly, just because you hold a Bible in your hand, it doesn't mean that God is there with you. Just because you pray doesn't mean that God is with you. Always we must understand this. Always we must analyze this, whether God is with me or not. Here we are seeing Israelites didn't notice that God was not with them, but they thought that the Ark of the Covenant can save them, but it could not, because God was not with them and they lost that battle. Your past experiences are not enough to bring you victory. We are seeing Saul, a very brave king, a very successful leader. We are seeing in the Bible that he defeated the enemies in all his battles. He defeated whoever opposed the Israelites. He defeated them. He was a warrior. He had a good army. But at the very end of his life, he faced a battle in which God was not with him. And he realized that. That's why before this battle he was so panicked. He had that fear. He was so worried about the battle because somehow Saul sensed that God was not with him. And we know what happened to him. In the end, Saul lost that battle, and he died. And also Samson, who was a great judge, God anointed him. He gave an unexplainable power, physical power. And what happened? Samson thought that I could defeat the men who are against me as I did before. He was not realizing the fact that God was not with him because he broke the covenant. He broke the covenant he made with God, and God departed from him. But in spite of that, he thought that I could overpower my enemies, but it didn't happen. God was not with him, and hence he was captured by his enemies. And just your trust in God alone is not enough to give you victory. The people of Israel had a promise. God promised them that I will give you the land of Canaan. And after 400 years of slavery, they were redeemed by God. They were brought close to the promised land. But what happened there? They failed to trust God initially. So they lamented against God. They told us that, they told God that our children will become slaves. We will perish before them. We are seeing a lot of giants there, so we can't win them. But on the very next day, their mind changed. They now trusted God. They now believe that God can give us victory. Yes, even though we can face a giant, the people of Israelites were telling to Moses that we will wage war against them. But it was too late. God was not with them. God was not in that idea of waging war, because already because of their disbelief, because of their unfaithfulness, God told them to go to the wilderness for 40 years. But in spite of that word, they fought against the Canaanites. But what happened? They were defeated by their enemies simply because God was not with them. So it is very clear that only God can give you victory. You might prepare a chariot, you might prepare the horses, you might have a good cavalry, you might have anything, but only God can give you victory. You might work hard in your studies, you might have excellent skills in your workplace, you might have exceeding knowledge, but we have to understand this. As a Christian, without God, we are nothing. Without God, there is no victory, because God alone can give you victory. So, when I meditated about the battles, I was able to divide them or categorize them into three. I'm not talking about something unusual. I'm just going to talk about physical battles which happened in the scripture. So, I'm just going to categorize them into three. In one kind of battle, the first of its kind, like God can fight for us in the spiritual realm, but we have to fight in the physical world to win. Or I could say like this: physically, we can't see God's intervention except a victory. We can't see any miracles happening, or we can't see God's divine intervention in these kind of battles, but God is working in the spiritual realm, or God is working behind the scenes. We can't comprehend how He works or what is He doing. We don't know, but definitely He is working in the spiritual realm to give us victory. For example, in the scripture we are seeing in the days of Barak and Deborah, the Israel's army fought against Sisera, It just looks like a physical battle. So Sisera had an army, he had many chariots, he came to battle against the Israelites and Barak gathered few men and he also fought against him. So it looks like some kind of physical battle, nothing else. We are not seeing any kind of physical help from God in this battle. He didn't send any angels to destroy the enemy or some fireballs from heaven or an earthquake, nothing. They didn't see anything. In similar kind of battle, we can't see any kind of miracles. In this kind of battle, we can't see any physical experience of God in your battles. But we have to understand that God is working in the spiritual realm. In the same scripture, we are able to find that God was working in the spiritual realm to defeat Sisera and his army. Deborah and Barak, after their victory, they sang a praise to God in the Judges chapter 5. In verse 20, they clearly mentioned that. The verse 20 says like this: They fought from heaven, and the stars in their courses fought against Sisera. So, what does it mean? It means that Sisera was not just defeated physically, but in the spiritual realm, whatever is supporting Sisera or whatever spirits or whatever help he got in the spiritual realm was defeated by God and his angels. That's why the Israelites were able to defeat Sisera. So, in this kind of battles, victory is the end result to say that God has intervened. In many situations in which we couldn't see the work of God because God works for us in the spiritual realm, and the end result is definitely a victory. In the second kind of battle, you can see God's intervention, but we also should fight for a victory. So it's not just God who fights for us, or it doesn't mean that we have to fight in the physical world, but God will help us in the physical world, but that is not going to complete to give a victory. We must also fight. In the days of Samuel, the Philistines came against the Israelites. The people of Israel were disheartened, fear gripped them, and they were in so panic mode. And they asked Samuel, please pray to God. Please pray to God. We are facing an enemy. Just now we were defeated by them. We don't have the strength to defeat them. Please pray. Please pray. Please pray for God's mercy. They requested Samuel. And Samuel prayed. He stood in the gap. And you know what happened? The Philistines were nearing the Israel, the camp of Israel. They were just marching towards them. They were pretty much close. And suddenly God sent great thunders upon the Philistines. And the Philistines fell before Israel. But we are seeing the battle was not yet over. The Israelites gathered their strength. They pursued the Philistines and they defeated them. So, in this kind of battle, God will help us, but we must also fight for victory. We are seeing the same thing happening in the times of David. David's army fought against Absalom's army. The battle was taking place in a forest. And this beautiful biblical verse tells us like this: For the battle spread over the country, and the wood devoured more people that day than the sword. So we are seeing the David's men fighting against their enemies, And also, the nature is fighting against David's enemies. It means God is also intervening in a divine way. Somehow we are seeing God's intervention physically. Not just the sword killed those men, but the God's creation fought against David's enemy. So this is a second kind of battle in which God can help you, but you should also fight your physical battle. And we have a third kind of battle. This is the most important thing, and it is a special one. God Himself fighting against our enemies. This is a most a kind of gift or a kind of special thing which God can do, or what we should expect when we face some kind of hurdles or obstacles or opposition, is that God alone should fight for us. This is the greatest pleasure we can get, or a greatest gift we can get, because we need not sweat or work hard, but God Himself will put upon the responsibility over His shoulders and fight for us. As a Christian, we must desire this. God alone should fight for us. And because there are a lot of blessings, lot of advantages in it. So, in our subsequent video, I am going to discuss about the God's battle, the battle in which God alone took responsibility and God fought physically to give us victory. So, thanks for watching this video and stay tuned.